Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Rainier Avenue Radio celebrates the summer of 2022. We'll be live from your favorite community festivals and events, including the Doug Baldwin United Way Barbecue in Renton, Atlantic Street Center's Juneteenth celebration from the Rainier Beach Plaza, Jefferson Jumpstarts concerts on Beacon Hill, the Junior Football League Jamboree from Judkins Park, and of course, we'll be live from the Othello International Festival Sunday, August 14th from Othello Park, and again on August 20th. We will once again broadcast live from the big day of play at Rainier Playfield. Can't be at any of these community celebrations in person, we will be streaming all of them on our broadcast media platforms. Just go to our website, RainierAvenueRadio.world, and if you missed them, you can even go back online and watch and enjoy them again. Rainier Avenue Radio celebrates the summer of 2022.
Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music, All Day Saturday. Music, all day Saturday.
This is Edwin Bailey, Bulldog Blue.
Jazz from the Cabinets.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Start Time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce. This is Start Time.
Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae Hour, K-Fox Night.
Looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the Fox.
Fresh Juice with D-Money and the crew.
Myself, D-Money. Nice Size Patron.
Taylor
There's a
Hart.
Spencia, the Northwest Rap Gang.
DJ Medina, Chad Cheddar, Northwest Rap Game.
Sergio Lacour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell her who we talking.
Sea Monster Radio, Mo Jams is your jam.
We're live. Welcome to Mojo Mondays. This is KZ of KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mojo Mondays.
Just my opinion. God is inspiration all day and all night. Saturdays on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no co-pays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
All right. It's high noon on a Thursday, which means, it's Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm your host, Mazvita Maraire. And as always, we have a big show. We have a big show every Thursday. That's why we appreciate you all tuning in and whatever broadcast medium you're finding us, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Facebook. What else are we on? Twitch. I don't know, we're on Instagram, but we normally like to D-Money will send out kind of here is where you can find us, and our promo materials we'll try to let you know as well. But hey, you found us, so we appreciate that. And as far as the show today, we're gonna concentrate on the WNBA. Been kind of lacking covering the WNBA Seattle Storm. Glancing over it, kind of telling you a little bit and then moving on. I know the Mariners are hot. They just beat the Yankees. They did. An amazing series. They won. They lost the first game, the Mariners. See, there I go. I went right to the Mariners. I was midstream talking about the Storm, went to the Mariners. Kind of a gravitational pull. Happens when you haven't been in the playoffs for a long time, but I'm going to do a full stop and go back. So because this is super, not just because. WNBA, there's some really amazing basketball being played. And I would like to kind of go, you know what, it has nothing to do with its women's basketball. I like to take that moniker out and just say it's good basketball. I don't know. I'll ask Kevin Pelton when he comes on along with Jeff Brown, because they, you know, he is of Pelton is ESPN,
with Smart Sound.
just a huge
Reduce your background noise.
He is a big
So you come
columnist, has been.
loud and
He covered the Sonics, covers the NBA for ESPN, and Jeff Brown is with Storm Chasers. So, anyways, we'll ask them. I was just this whole thing in regards to, you know, should we always continue to say women's basketball? But that's not the only questions we're going to ask them. There's a lot going on. As I said, Sue Bird, his swan song, played her last regular season game last week, and it was a day of days. And she is, I say, one of the greatest athletes and basketball players I've been around and have seen. So again, we'll ask them kind of see. But the Storm played a huge game. And they won. In fact, they beat the Chicago Sky, if you will, 111 to 110. And it was just an amazing offensive display. They set some WNBA records, so we'll go into that. But other stuff that's going on at the half hour, we'll talk Huskies as we always do. Been at Seahawks camp and training camp, so we'll give you a little update about that. Again, that's all pushed all that back in the second half, just because we really it's time to will continue to focus on the Storm, what's going on. This is the business end of this season, 2 more games, and they will be on their way to the playoffs, and we'll get our experts to tell us exactly their predictions and, you know, what they think, where the Storm will finish. I think they're locked in a 4-5, but again, when you've got experts coming on, we'll have them kind of give us their expert analysis. And also, I'm going to put Kevin on the spot. If you go to ESPN.com WNBA, they've got this debating Breanna Stewart or Asia Wilson for MVP. So he was quoted in there. So we'll ask him about that. Kind of fun, you know. And what we'll do is, you know what, let's just get him on. So as I've said, he is one of the premier writers, has been for basketball for a long time. With the Sonics and the WNBA, he's the expert. I tell you, when I sit there press row and I have questions, he's a basketball player, so I don't ask him a lot about fouls, but I ask him about the NBA, kind of what's going on there. So, Kevin, can you come on? If it's WNBA, I'll ask him. If it's kind of he's a basketball player, so I think I ref one of his games. Kevin, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Maz. Yeah, I'm retired now, certainly, so you don't have to worry about that element of it anymore. But we've been watching games together on press row, dating back to the 200 level of Key Arena in the Sonics days. So it's been a minute.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. All right, so look, just give me your impression of what's happening right now with the WNBA. I'm going to try Big Sky, and then we'll go down to, you know, the Storm in the playoffs. Just what's happening to WNBA?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're having a really great battle this final week of the season for playoff positioning. Dallas got locked into the 6th seed last night when Phoenix lost, but that's the only one of the 8 playoff spots that's been locked up going into the final 2 games of the regular season. You've got the number 1 seed and home court advantage throughout the playoffs potentially at stake tonight when Chicago visits Las Vegas. And, you know, the Storm did the Aces a bit of a favor by winning in Chicago on Tuesday, as you mentioned. We still got, so there's kind of 3 teams in that upper tier. Then you've got Seattle and Washington, as you mentioned, are set. They're going to play each other in the first round in the 4-5 matchup. We just don't know which of those 2 teams is going to have home court. And that's really big in the WNBA this year because they changed the playoff format. Before, it had been 1 game for the teams 3 through 8, single elimination, a couple ladders of that to get to the best of 5 semifinals. People didn't like that. So now it's a best of 3 series again in the first round, but the higher seed hosts the first 2 games. So if the Storm finish 5th, it's possible Sue Bird might not play a playoff game in Seattle at all. That last Sunday's game could have been her last one, but the win in Chicago, very key to that. Now they just need 1 win in their last 2 to assure home court advantage in the first round and assure us a couple more chances to watch Sue Bird at Climate Pledge Arena.
Brilliant. Okay, D Money, thank you for popping up the playoffs. I mean, the standings. So yeah, Kevin. So right now they're 4th, Seattle Storm. Wait a minute, what happened? Is Chicago Sky they're number 1? And I got my little game notes here. Thank you, Jeff Hallman. And the Storm thrashed the Sky.
I don't know if it was a thrashing, but certainly offensively, they thrashed the Chicago defense in that game. As you mentioned, tying the most points in franchise history, new WNBA record with 37 assists. Very impressive.
Yeah, fair enough. I will retract that from the record. It wasn't a thrashing. It was an awesome showing. And as an awesome showing, he is now in. Let's bring in Jeff Brown, who had some internet. But are you in? Jeff Brown.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So he's on his phone, so he's going to be audio, but he's another one who covers the WNBA. Look, real quickly, Storm Chasers, tell us about that. And then we were just talking about the Sky. I mean, the Storm having a great offensive explosion against the Sky. So start with Storm Chasers, who that is, how you related to that, and then jump right on in about Seattle's win over Chicago.
Sure. Yeah. So I on Twitter, my account is WNBA Storm Chaser. That's kind of the name of my I guess account. But I've been covering the Storm since 2015. Been a basketball fan my whole life. My dad, would take me to Sonics games growing up, and then when the Storm came in, would take me to Storm games as well. And as I got older, I was kind of frustrated at the lack of media coverage for the WNBA and the Storm and everything. You'd read the papers, you'd be on sports radio, following all that stuff, and it just, they never really talked about that. And so it was kind of frustrating. So I was just like, you know what, I want to kind of make a positive impact, a positive difference. And so ended up just kind of finding my way, working my way in to cover the team. And like I said, I've been doing it since Jewel Lloyd's rookie year in 2015. And here I am. And go ahead.
No. Like I said, what was your take on Kevin broke down the playoff seedings, right? And we had popped them up just in terms of the Chicago Sky 1, Vegas, Connecticut. There they are. I don't know if you can see them, but my question was, are the Storm good enough to beat the Sky again? Right? Because they're the best team, and here they score 111 to 110. I mean, 111 to 100. What happened in that game?
Yeah, Seattle was just on fire. I mean, everything worked right offensively for them, and I actually feel like they match up pretty well against Chicago. Obviously, throughout they won 2 out of the 3 games they faced each other this year, with their one loss being in Chicago by, I believe, 4 points. So, I think it's a team that they match up pretty well against, especially versus a team like Connecticut where they were swept. So it's specifically for that game. I mean, they were the Storm were on fire. They made nearly 60% of their field goals. I believe it was 46% from 3-point range, and they were 100% from free throw line. And so just offensively, they had everything going.
Yeah, well, we're doing a B-roll just to my right, your left of Sue Bird's last game for about a minute there, just to get everybody to warm and fuzzy and remember. But, well, Kevin, you said, so right now the Storm are 4th, right, and the Mystics are 5th. The Storm play Friday, and then they against Minnesota. So, and then Las Vegas on Sunday. So what exactly is the chances. Can you recap the playoff scenario here where the Storm have a chance to finish again, please?
Yeah, so it's a magic number of 1 to clinch that 4 seed for the Storm, either 1 win for them or 1 loss for Washington. Now, the Mystics finished their season with a home and home against the Indiana Fever, who have lost 16 consecutive games. If we scroll down to the very bottom of the standings, where we see that they are the one team that is not currently in playoff contention. We didn't even talk about the fact that there are 4 teams tied for 2 playoff spots right now, with LA 1 spot behind. They need a win tonight against Connecticut to avoid elimination. So that part of the playoff picture is wild as well, but pretty simple for the Storm. They just need that 1 win, but Minnesota's playing well. Got a very nice win last night at Phoenix, despite the fact that the Mercury were without Diana Taurasi and Skylar Diggins-Smith. But, they've won 4 of their last 5, and that 1 loss came last Wednesday in Seattle when the Storm pretty comfortably blew out the Lynx. But since then, they got Nafisa Collier back in the lineup after she gave birth in late May, and that's a big addition. So I expect a much more competitive game Friday in Minnesota. That's going to be Sylvia Fowles' last regular season home game. So a celebration of her, much like we saw with Sue on Sunday.
Jeff, what's your take in terms of the matchup wise Friday?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, and with Nafisa Collier, I mean, that is a big addition, but it's also, I mean, I'm curious about that, right? Because obviously she's not going to be in like peak game shape and everything, and I believe like one of her last games, her minutes were somewhat limited. So I'm actually really excited to see like how much of a difference that makes. It could be a huge difference, and so that's something to kind of look out for. But yeah, they've beaten Minnesota all their games so far this year. And although they had to come back, they had to rally back in the game in Minnesota because they were playing them pretty tough. So I do think that the fact that it is Sylvia Fowles' last home game, similar to what we saw in Seattle, where there's just a huge supportive crowd. I think, the Storm are going to have to go up against that. I know Stewie has talked about they're comfortable playing on the road, and, they have a lot of veterans, and herself, and obviously Sue and Jewel and Tina and stuff like that. So I think they're going to be pretty well prepared. And I think this is kind of like, I feel like this is the win they need to get, because Vegas is most likely going to be playing for the number 1 overall seed. So I feel like Vegas is going to have a ton to play for against Seattle on Sunday. So I think if the Storm are going to get that home court advantage, then it hopefully will be on Friday.
Yeah, and obviously Vegas beat the Storm here. Just for the both of you, what do the Storm have to do to continue, this up the high assist rate, and also to step into the playoffs and get that seeding and get some momentum, player wise and scheme wise? What you all see has to happen?
I mean, I see a couple of key players. Number one, when Gabby Williams plays as aggressively as she did on Tuesday in Chicago, the Storm is just a totally different team offensively. She's got that kind of potential. We've seen it in the EuroLeague. She was MVP of the EuroLeague Final Four as Chopron won the championship last year. So that talent is there. She just hasn't been able to do it on a consistent basis in the W. And then the other thing we saw on Tuesday, the Storm's plus minus was not very good with her on the court, but it was the best offensive game we've seen from Ezi Magbagor since she went to the bench and Tina Charles moved into the starting lineup. And, Jeff asked about that pregame. It had been something that had been on my mind for a while, which, the starting lineup has worked great with Tina Charles, but the bench with Ezi Magbagor hadn't been quite as productive because she hadn't played as well as she had as a starter. So very nice to see her be aggressive and effective in that game.
Jeff, your take?
Yeah, I share a lot of those same thoughts. And I think that the thing that was so interesting with switching Tina to the starting lineup is my kind of biggest, I guess, I don't know if I want to say issue or like concern, was I felt like Tina Charles is going to put up those numbers whether she was starting or coming off the bench, as long as she got, a fair amount of minutes. But I just felt like she, would be more comfortable, where Ezi, it kind of seems like she's lost some of her aggressiveness, and, playing off the bench now. As Kevin noted, against Chicago was her best game since going to the bench. So hopefully that's a sign of, a positive sign that maybe she's turning things around or getting more adjusted to her role. in that regard. And then, yeah, like Kevin was talking about with Gabby Williams, I mean, Gabby is, it's been a fascinating thing for me to watch. Like I was familiar with her, but not like super, super familiar with her prior to the season. And it's interesting to see how much she's grown even just in this year with the Storm. Like you look at, I think it was like the first month plus, where she didn't have a single game in double figures. And now in the latter half of the season, she's had, multiple, and it's her just trajectory is going up and up. And it does seem like it's either if Gabby more likely to do it, but either Gabby or Steph Talbot, if the Storm can get one of those two players to kind of, score in double figures, along with obviously you're going to get Stewie's contributions. You're almost certainly going to get, Jewel. And if it's not Jewel, it's Tina. So that, you're getting those points, but if you can just get that extra from either Gabby or Steph, I think when they're like that, they can beat anyone.
Is Steph healthy? Fully healthy? Or is it just that, the professional, everybody's playing with a little bit of an injury right about now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. She did have, I believe it was the ankle injury.
Yeah.
And so, but she did play. So like, as far as we know, she's at least, at least able to be out there and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm sorry. I should have seen how many minutes she played last game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought her mobility was a little compromised on Sunday against Las Vegas, but Tuesday I thought looked more normal.
Okay. All right. So what do we need from Jewel Lloyd to be consistent? Any concern there as we go down the stretch just because of what happened against Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, I think she has not played at the same level this season she did last year when she was all WNBA first team. And, obviously that's a big thing. You look at the MVP conversation that you alluded to at the top before you brought me on. I think one of the interesting things Sunday was kind of emblematic of that, where Stewie probably outplayed Asia Wilson in that game, despite a slow start, finished with 35 points, I think 10 boards, 9 or 10, the usual assists. And just Asia Wilson had a lot more help. They had 4 starters score at least 15 points. It's, Chelsea Gray making big shots late in that game to help Las Vegas put it away. And for the Storm, Stewie and Tina Charles, the only players to score double figures. Jewel Lloyd held to, I think, 1 point in that one. So you're going to need to get more production from her than that. I don't know what the answer is specifically. I mean, maybe there's, some things they can do in terms of, what they're calling for her to get her better involved. Do you see that, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, obviously on Tuesday, she was back to kind of being the Jewel Lloyd that we know. And I mean, I believe she had 18 points in the win against Chicago. Mm-hmm. Like when I wrote about it, when, she only had the 1 point performance against Las Vegas, it was my biggest concern was that she had started the first half, I believe, 0 for 4, but in the entire second half, she only took 2 shots, and I believe she took 0 in the fourth quarter. And that's so unlike Jewel, because I know there's like a lot of players that they let like missed shots get to them. I know even Gabby has kind of talked about, dealing with kind of the mentals and like having to like see shots go in, and then that gives her more confidence, and otherwise maybe she's not as aggressive. But like with Jewel, it just seems like that's like one of her greatest assets is that it seems like, she could go like 5 of 18, but like she doesn't care because she's, going to just be scoring those points. And so, yeah, that was my bigger concern was, her not taking the shots as opposed to just like missing some back on Friday against Vegas.
Now, was that some? She only took 6 shots, but against Vegas, was that a strategy thing? Was the scheme something away from her? So because she couldn't take the 6 shots, and that's for both of you, or the shots open, and like you say, Jeff, it was a little bit of like not rattle, but I'd rather have somebody else make it. Was it a conscious choice, or did she have the shots to take?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. Like I don't remember it being real obvious, like her being like wide open for a 3 and then passing it off or anything like that. So I think it's lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I think that's going to happen too a bit with Tina Charles coming on board, just because Tina is, is going to be a high volume shooter. But like, I'm pretty sure in that game, both Tina and Stewie were shot over 50% or 50 or greater. And so it's, they were both taking a lot of shots, but they were both real effective. So, I mean, you don't really have any issue with that. But yeah, I mean, still there's got to be more shots for Jewel and there will be.
Especially because, to Jeff's point, it's not just her willingness to keep taking those shots. She's often going to take the biggest shot of the game because, in late game situations, she's often been a more effective option for the Storm than Brianna Stewart, despite the fact that, Stewie is the MVP.
That's a learning thing for her then, Jewel Lloyd. You know what I mean? Both of you have watched, some of the best athletes in terms of, the Jordans and whatnot, in terms of learning how to take that big shot and be that big shot. Is that part of what she's has to learn, how to stay on top of the charts in terms of every game?
I think more because we've now had this next game against Chicago where she put up plenty of shots, had the 18 points. I'm not like, I kind of look at it more as like a one-off. I'd be more concerned with Jewel if it was multiple games in a row where she was only taking like 3 or 4 shots and that was it. And then you'd kind of wonder, hey, is there kind of an injury or something that she's playing through? And then the other thing that I know I wrote about a little bit after she had that poor performance, she is having her worst field goal shooting of her career. But last year, it is difficult to compare last year because last year was like a total career year for her, like a career high in points, I believe a career high in assists, and I think it was her second best year ever in rebounds. And so and as Kevin pointed out, she made all WNBA first team last year. She was playing at her very, very best, where this year it's coming back a little bit more to the norm. So it's, her points are down from about 18 to 15 per game. And yeah.
Yeah, so Jewel shot 12 field goals against Chicago, and she had 6 against Vegas. So that is not an aberration, right? The other elephant in the room, I'll drop Jewel Lloyd. I don't want this to be a Jewel Lloyd. What's wrong with Jewel Lloyd segment? Where's the coach? Where's the coach? Who's coaching the team?
Yeah, we keep asking. Hopefully we'll get an update today because, it's typically 5 days before you can start testing out of the health and safety protocols with the WNBA this year. Noelle Quinn went in on Friday. I think she was not at practice that day. So, Tuesday would have been the first day to start testing. Now it's very plausible that she could be back for Friday's game, but not a certainty. We saw that we kind of assumed that Stu Bird and I think it was Steph Talbot that was out at the same time, that they were going to both be able to be back for, they had a game after, about a 5-day break. And then lo and behold, they didn't return those negative tests. And it wasn't until Sunday, I think like 9 days later that they were cleared, or 8 days later.
It's got to be killing. It's got to be killing her. But is there an impact, Jeff? And Kevin, you can answer after this one as well. Is there an impact, or such a veteran team?
That's a good question. I had asked Gabby about that, like if there was any real difference with Pokey Chapman being kind of the lead voice, and she said not really, because she said they kind of have a culture here. They have a way about winning. They have a way about how they run the offense, that it's been Sue's kind of been running the same offense for years and years and years, and so I think still having Sue there as well probably limits the impact, but. They had such a wonderful performance under Pokey, in Chicago.
Don't say
it. So all I'm saying is that Pokey did a very good job.
Kevin, you want to touch that, or shall we?
Yeah, I mean, all I'd say is it's still the system that's been put in, as you say. So much of the coaching happens before the. In practices over the course of the season, not necessarily on the sidelines during those 2 hours. And even though Noe isn't physically there, she's still involved in the game planning and all the prep right now.
Absolutely. We've got a couple more minutes. And again, Jeff Brown of Storm Chaser, and you can see the screen, but Kevin Pelton of ESPN, he's WNBA writer. Go to his stuff. So as I said, I'm there now. Kevin is quoted as saying, Jeff, I'm coming to you on the debate, who's the MVP. So I don't know whether Kevin was going with the homer. He said, I'm also picking Stewart as having the best season of her career. but Stewart has an edge in terms of advanced stats. So there, Stewart's 2.4 assists to turnover rate wouldn't be bad for a guard, let alone a power forward. So we know where Kevin stands on this. Where are you at?
I think it's a two-person race, right? It's Asia Wilson and Breanna Stewart.
Get off the fence.
No, because honestly, so a lot of times, at least I feel that the team with the better record, it often will end up with the MVP. It's kind of obviously that's the whole team is doing that, but at the same time, they're the leader, they're the best player of the team that is at the higher spot. And obviously Stewie, when she won the MVP in 2018, the Storm were the number 1 overall seed. When Asia won it, and Stewie was very close in 2020, the Las Vegas Aces were the number 1 overall seed. And right now we know the Storm are going to finish 4th or 5th, and the Aces are going to finish 1st or 2nd, I believe. And so, I think that's going to favor Asia overall. It's so hard it's almost like there's not a wrong answer. Like if Stewie won the award, it wouldn't be a robbery. And if Asia won the award, it wouldn't be. So I think Asia's going to win it. But Stewie definitely deserves it as well.
All right, gentlemen, we got to go. Thank you so much for carving out the time. Kevin Pelton of ESPN, WNBA reporter. You can go to his stuff, ESPN. Hello. And Jeff Brown of the Storm Chaser. Where are you at on as far as the Storm Chaser? How do we find it?
Yeah, at Twitter at WNBA Storm Chaser, and then I have a link to my Substack where I just do a bunch of articles and occasionally post audio interviews and things like that.
All right, well, there you go. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much. You want to get informed, go to either one of those sites. Thanks, fellas. I got to go on break. This is Seattle Sports Weekend. Seattle Sports Weekly on, we're going to go on break, and we'll be right back.
I'm Paul Pearson, host of Star Time, and when I'm not hearing men compare women to residential real estate, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Something amazing happens when you buckle a seatbelt. It's kind of magic when we put our phones out of reach, like in the glove compartment, or give extra room for someone on their bike. That little act of stopping to let someone cross the street, it's a thing of beauty. Even getting a ride home after drinking is quite heroic. Because doing all the little things plays a huge role in keeping us safe on the road. Together, we get there. A message from the Washington Traffic Safety Commission.
Kind of nonsense conversation are we having here?
The Neon Ghost Show. The Neon Ghost Show. Right here on Rainier... what's it? Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Right about now.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm so tired. I have to pee.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Big Day of Play is a celebration of Seattle's diversity, and it encourages neighbors, communities, and families to have fun, build relationships, and be active together. It's a day to play your way. We'll see you on Saturday, August 20th from 12 to 6 p.m. at Rainier Playfield next to the Rainier Community Center. Don't forget to RSVP at bigdayofplay.org with promo code BDOP14 for a chance to win prizes.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at RainierAvenueRadio.world.
are back. Yes, we are back on Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio. That world. That was a fun segment. Informative. Look, it's a good segment when you as the host are going, man, that was fun. That's what happens when you get quality guests, people that are in the know. So who am I speaking of? I speak of Jeff Brown of Storm Chaser, and he's on Twitter. And then Kevin Pelton of ESPN, WNBA reporter. I mean, man, you just go to their stuff, or go back to the rebroadcast of the show, and then you kind of hear what they have to say. But the rebroadcast will kind of set the tone for you. But hey, ongoing, continued following of those fellas will keep you up to date. And as we kind of discussed, it's always worth going over again. Sue Bird played her last game, home game, regular season home game last Sunday. And so I said at the top, I said it during the interviews, one of the greatest athletes this international athletes that's ever been there. There's just no doubt. I mean, her accolades, and she's won at every level, and one of the winningest athletes, as I've said. Allison Felix comes to mind. Michael Jordan comes to mind. LeBron James. I mean, just in terms of, the league, college, Olympics, the league they're in, college, and then the Olympics. That's what I think set apart. Now, I mentioned Allison Felix. She's track and field, and Serena Williams is retiring. Well, she lost yesterday in tennis, but she will finish her career at the U.S. Open coming up in September. A really great venue. If you ever want to watch tennis, go to the U.S. Open. So, point is, the greats are on their way. It is a new era in sports. I think you're seeing that. And Tom Brady will be gone as well, right? This is his last season. So, well, we don't know. But I could go on and do a segment on what a year we're seeing. But what it does, it creates an opening for new and amazing, the new era of superstars. So it's bittersweet, but you know what? Yeah, don't cry for me, Argentina. All is well. We're moving forward. And moving forward, as I said earlier at the top of the segment, the Mariners are looking very good. They beat the Yankees for the first time since 2018, I believe. But there you go. It's amazing. There's a collective atmosphere. And the Seattle Sounders, so they have the day off today. The Mariners do. And, but all indications, Mariners it's a travel day. They go to Texas. All indications are this is a really, really good team. And they're pitching. The other day was a 13-inning game. 13 innings, and the Mariners finally won. Scoreless. It was a pitcher's duel. So Garrett Cole and Man Castillo for the Mariners. Just it was incredible. Went deep into the night, but it was well worth it. And then the Mariners won yesterday. What else we got? We have the Huskies. Lars will be coming on in just a moment to kind of recap what he's seen at the UW practices. And yes, as for them said Seahawks, today is a travel day. They did their walkthrough. We missed it. That's okay, because normally take a little bit inside. When they do the walkthrough, teams do a walkthrough, shoot around. When you hear that, it's usually the day before the game. Yeah, I just thank you, D-Money. And if you look to the right, it's a very interesting video that I captured yesterday at practice. And it shows defensive coordinator Clint Hurt talking with Jamal Adams in terms of, now I'm glad the audio isn't there because, just the nuances of when he's rushing through, right, when he's blitzing. If you look here, they're talking about, go 3-4 stutter steps, make that head fake, and then go to the right so that you can fake the lineman or the running back that's going to pick him up on the blitz. I I truly believe the Seahawks defense is going to be better. And when you see these things here, it just shows you the intricacy of what's going on. Lars, can you pop on for a second? I'm going to just have you. Can you see? Oh, no. D-Money, can you go back on that video? It's just kind of an interesting video. Yeah. And so the reason I'll bring this back to you, see what you saw, Husky, but it is really interesting. I'm going to play one more time. Just watching Clint Hurt, I really believe the Seahawks defense is really going to take a step forward because they are just the attention to detail. I mean, it's an all-pro. Now, look, he's got a big left-hand club going on, but it's going to be. I think they're going to take a step up just because they're paying attention to detail. When you've got the defensive coordinator working with an all-pro linebacker, that's pretty impressive. And speaking, why I brought you on, our guy, that's right, Lars Hanson, our college reporter and expert. What are you seeing at Husky Stadium? Let's just start with the defense. We'll go all over, but you seeing anything like that in terms of intricate?
Yeah. Well, ironically, this is a great, perfect segue for it. The one thing Buda Baker and Taylor Rapp, two guys that were drafted high in the second round, were known for as a safety at Washington, were blitzers. Not just guys that could hit and cover and be able to drop back, because as a safety, that's kind of 1A, 1B, what you have to do. But one thing that makes elite safeties like Jamal Adams one of the best in the league, and the reason why he's so high paid, is because he's not just a cover guy. He's a guy you can come down almost like a third or fourth linebacker and be that key blitzer that disrupts both the run and the pass. You see what happens when Jamal's not able to do that. The Seahawks defense isn't as good. The Huskies defense last year, for example, name a time when Asa Turner or one of those guys blitzed. Almost never. And that was so rare to see. And also kind of one of the reasons why Washington suffered on defense last year, giving up so many big plays, which is atypical of them, because that's one thing that they're actually pretty good at not doing is preventing those big plays. And so this season, they've kind of gotten back to using Asa Turner as more of a blitzer on every second or third down, kind of mixing it up. Even yesterday, we saw Elijah Jackson blitz on a run. Outside corner, young redshirt freshman, sophomore blitzing. They're getting all these guys going, because it's not just Jordan Perriman doing this as like a fifth year guy. He knows how to do it. They're making sure everyone that's going to be in those two deeps knows how to do it. I think that's pretty indicative of what Kalen has wanted from his entire staff, is let's get these guys the true fundamentals so that when we get to the season, we don't have to keep going over it. It's already second nature in their head. Whereas if you got to keep on coaching these guys the fundamentals through the season and having to reteach it over and over, you're not necessarily able to prepare for a game as well, because you got to keep teaching this stuff versus focusing on, hey, when you're beating this guy different from last week, you're gonna have to go inside versus outside. And that's what you're seeing in that video of Jamal. How do you blitz a left tackle on the going around him?
So what are you seeing in terms of, hold on, what I want to ask you, you mentioned something in terms of the defense. Well, let's do this. We'll throw an easy one. They had to move the practice yesterday.
Yeah, about, I want to say 30, 45 minutes into practice, out of nowhere, everyone's like, hey, we're going inside the Dempsey because there was some apparent lightning in the area. It was raining, obviously, and I'm kind of thinking, well, they don't usually move practices inside for rain because, in Seattle in September, October, November, you kind of got to practice in that. That's just kind of how some of the games are going to go. But when the word came out that it was lightning, it's like, well, I guess, yeah, being outside in the metal stadium ain't going to do much good for us. So yeah, they had to kind of, they still went the full length, which I thought was a little surprising. I thought maybe they would amend it, but still got to see some actually live tackles and live scrimmaging going on a little bit, which is a little surprising to see, because you wouldn't think this early in camp they would go there, but it's, day 6. So it's about time to get going a little bit. And you could definitely tell this team is ready to, get going and kind of hit somebody else for a change. And they still got 2 more weeks to go in camp. So I think it just seems like the energy on this team overall is kind of like, hey, we're rejuvenated. We're ready to go. Let's, we're all kind of firing here. And they still got a couple of weeks to go to tune everything up.
Yeah. As soon as they said, hey, we're going indoors, I said exit stage right now. Hey, that's Kim Reynolds was like, hey, can you hold on this metal pole for me? Yeah, right. Okay, I'm on my way out. Listen, more seriously, I'm going to ask you a couple names. You know, what have you seen or where they at? You've been there the whole time. Where is Carson Bruner?
He's been pretty solid with the second team next to Chris Moll, the linebacker transfer from UAB, which I think is appropriate given the two that are above him. Cam Bright, a 5th-year, 6th-year guy transferred in from the University of Pittsburgh. Alfonso Tuputala has been playing next to him with the ones pretty consistently. Carson got his chance last year, and he showed pretty well. And I think it's kind of that progression of, well, you're still right there. You're still going to get plenty of playing time because Chris Moll has been a guy who's obviously going to get some playing time. And so having Carson next to an experienced guy has been nothing but helpful for him because he's a very young, talented athlete. But those two veteran guys, Cam Bright and Chris Moll, are kind of like second and third teachers as coaches as they were. You know, kind of like instead of having you can't have him on the field, but it's almost like an extension of the coach when you get those veteran guys in and say, hey, you know, take this corner. So when you're on, there's very small details where guys on the field, you'd be like, hey, you know, next play or next drive, what do this instead of that. And that's how you see those in-game adjustments because coaches can't necessarily always tell them that because if they're either in the booth or doing whatever, it's nice to have those veteran guys there to kind of be that bridge, whereas you're not playing two young guys right next to each other. Because think about that. Without Eddie, if you take out Eddie, who's injured, probably going to miss the first half of the season, and you don't bring in two transfers, you now got Tuputala and Bruner as your ones. And that's not to say that they couldn't hold their own, but I think especially as a first year, you want to get that experience mixed in with the young guys. And so I think that was two good additions, and they've shown pretty well in camp.
All right, Chris Moll joined last year. He was at UAB.
Yep.
Spent 5 years there. So played 50 games, 235 total tackles, including 27.5 for a loss. So as you're saying, they're bringing in some solid transfer there, which it just seems, you know, we'll get Scott Lager on again, but this is kind of the effect of the transfer portal. You know what I mean? You know what you have, and that's exactly what you're saying. So good stuff there. Cam Bright, grad transfer as well.
Yeah, he's looked really good. I think he's kind of that guy where he looks undersized, and he obviously is undersized, but plays above it. And given what they ask him to do, he's been very solid at it. You know, he's like kind of more the field general. He's better at run stuffing than pass stuffing, but he's getting a little, you know, kind of more comfortable with that. But he's seemed to be pretty solid with the ones this entire time. And he's a guy who came in first day of spring. Like he showed up like 2 days before camp. You know, one of those he announced the transfer in January, but couldn't actually set up shop in Seattle until right before spring ball started. And he's been a guy the coach Inge said, William Inge, defensive coordinator, said from day one, it's like he's been here in the program 3 years. He's been locked in, able to pick up the terminology, and that's carried over into fall camp. So he's another guy who's looked pretty solid with the ones.
Yeah, he came from Pitt, so obviously, you know,
rather experienced there.
Yeah, big experience. So who's your edge? Jeremiah Martin or Braylon Trice or Afo Asuwa?
So they're basically what the clear consensus is. They got three guys who they know can go.
Right.
Jeremiah Martin, you mentioned, Braylon Trice, and Zion Tupuola-Fatui. Now, you only get two on the field at the time. So what they've been doing in camp, and I think we saw it either day 5 or day 6, the first time the entire camp where Braylon and Zion have lined up opposite of each other. And I talked to Coach Schmidt, Eric Schmidt, the edge rusher coach yesterday, and he said, obviously Zion's more of the pass rusher. I think everyone kind of knows, you know, the reason he came back was to work on his run game. I think everyone kind of knows that. Even Zion admitted that after practice. Jeremiah Martin's better at run. He's more of a run stuffer edge. He said Braylon Trice is the combination of both of them. And if you could get that out of him, it kind of almost goes back to what Akaika Malloy said a couple of years ago, where he could be better than Joe Tryon, and everyone was kind of like, "Whoa, wait a minute, that's we're kind of saying a lot." You know, again, always coaches kind of, you know, throw, "Oh, he's going to be this next guy, he's going to be," and you never hear about it if they don't. But it actually is turning out that way, where if Braylon can put it all together, especially with Zion on the other edge, you could have two pretty unstoppable edge rushers. And the good news for Washington is there's also two other guys inside, so you're not leaving one of them high out to dry like last year.
Yeah, and so in terms of he played in all this is we're talking about Braylon Trice here. Played in 12 games, started against the Colorado and WSU game, and his first start was in he played in the Montana game. That was when he his debut on the field. So those All right. There's some big stones you're throwing out there, not in a bad way, but okay. The two guys you mentioned in the middle to make it all work. So Tuli Letiglasanoa and Ko Paiahopa.
So ironically, Ulmo/MJ Ali has been the guy next to
Say that again.
Tuli in the middle. That being said, yesterday, there's a reason why that depth chart is going to change. Obviously, nothing has come out from DeBoer. The coaches, there's nothing. The only comment that was made was that they think he'll be back. To me, the way that it sounded and the way that it looked, it didn't look like a Zion or a long-term sort of.
Lars, what happened? I'm sorry, I got to interrupt you. Go ahead.
It was during one of the plays, and it didn't. It looked like it was a helmet to the knee, to Ali. To Ali. So it's one of those where, again, it no doubt it hurts. It's one of those you're going to probably miss some bit. But to me, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a long-term thing. So in the meantime, you got a guy, like you mentioned, Kwao Paiahopa, who played some as a freshman, really kind of that fiery island guy. Think of, he's not as big as Vita or Danny, but he almost plays like it just because of the fire and the energy that he's got. And then you got a couple guys behind him, Jacob Bandis. There's a few others, younger, less experienced guys, to where if you need to have that gap sort of filled, that's why they moved MJ from offensive line to defensive line, was to kind of give them that second big body after Sam Tamani transferred to Oregon. I still think you can hold over enough with those younger guys, especially Kwao. And you got Voy Chanufi, who's came in as kind of a D tackle, is pretty much converted to D tackle at this point. A little more undersized from what you would want from that position, but a guy who, again, makes up for it with his effort and his energy. So I think as long as it's not a long-term thing, Tuli can hang with whoever's next to him, whether it's Kwao, Bandis, or whomever has to fill in there. But ideally, you would like to get MJ back, next to him, because he's a pretty big body.
Let me, I'm going to jump back to the edge. Quick question, then we can continue down the, moving down the depth chart here. Savell Smalls, where we at?
Yeah, Savell is a guy who, two practices in a row got a sack. And, he's kind of a guy who, again, going back to my conversation with Schmidt, he just wants to see consistency. What it sounds like is Savell is kind of really honed into himself, not sheltered himself, but kind of honed into, okay, this is where I am. This is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. Almost kind of like, for lack of a better term, maturing. Not that he wasn't mature to begin with, but you come into college, you're 5-star, you're the guy. You're, especially from Kennedy, right up the road. I think we know another dude who might fall into that same category. But nonetheless, it's not like, okay, every kid comes into college with ego, so it's not like, oh my God, he was an ego guy, now he's got to be humbled. It's like, well, that's kind of what you want from what you want your coaches to see is, okay, he's humble. He's zeroing in on what he needs to do. He knows what he has to fix, things like that. And I think he's just having fun now. And I don't know if that's a combination of last staff, new staff, or just, time, he's able to get, more under him in college and understand things. But it really seems like Savell is kind of that guy behind the trio that I mentioned, because what Schmidt wants to see is he's like, okay, I know I got 3 guys, but it would be nice to develop some depth behind him and consistent depth, not just, hey, we can plug you in the 2 deeps, but maybe some games you don't play at all, and then some games you play a little, and some you play a lot. It's like, no, we want to see consistency. Like, hey, if we put you in, we know what we're going to get out of you. And I think Savell is still developing to get to that point, but he's certainly made a ton of plays this fall. He's already got a few sacks, some PBUs. I think he's developing on track to what you want to see, but because you have so many veteran guys above him, you don't have to throw him into the fire per se.
All right. Since you mentioned a couple times, and that's why we have you where you're at, because you get these exclusive kind of discussions. Tell us about Eric Schmidt, who joined the UW this year, right? The special teams coordinator and coach, and he was with DeBoer at Fresno State for the last 2 years. So what were your impressions with him and, in the discussion you had?
Yeah, he seems like a guy who, being the edge rusher coach, is kind of like that's basically been just his thing, to work on the edges. And I think it was good when you're bringing Chuck Morrell and William Inge from Fresno. It's like, okay, let's keep the staff a little bit together with the cohesiveness. And he just seems like a guy who he knows lack of a term, knows the assignment, knows the role, knows what he has to do. He's not a big rah-rah guy, not a big, hey, let me, go. But he's also not not lackadaisical guy. He seems like very much like a teacher. It's like, hey, look, we can have some fun. We can, I'm not making it a boring room. But when we're here, this is what I want you to do. A lot of the times when I'm watching him, he's doing more teaching than anything else, and I think that's a good thing. That's what you want. You don't want a coach who's like, oh yeah, nice job, yeah. Whereas all the drills they're doing are not actually good or not fundamentally sound. It's like he seems like a very fundamentally sound coach. If that that kind of what I would picture him as, if for people to kind of get the visual. It's like he's a very good teacher, not necessarily a big energy guy, but very. It's kind of straightforward. You know what you get out of him. And I think ironically enough, I was thinking about that, his special teams title the past couple of days, watching Nick Sheridan work with the special teams as well. So I'm not sure how much he is per se in charge of it, or whether he's kind of designing it and having other coaches execute it, which again, special teams coordinator, that's kind of what you do. When Bob Gregory was the special teams coordinator, you kind of have other coaches help you and assist you with that because you're not the sole guy working there. And so I think that not that the special teams are solely on him, but it's kind of one of those things where I'm intrigued to see how the whole special teams comes about, because that is still a key part of the game. And I think we haven't seen a ton of, we're watching the punters yesterday and it's like, okay, that's all right. That's decent. Henry's missing some kicks, making some kicks. The walk-ons behind him are, again, just as sporadic. And so it's almost like, are we going to get an offense and a coach that's a never kick, never punt sort of situation? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm almost intrigued because I've never seen this type of special teams kind of, I don't want to say energy, but it just seems like this offense is more predicated on, hey, we're not really going to kick anyway, so why not just run with it?
It's early. I
mean,
yeah, I think you're fair enough. That's a great observation of what you saw. Overall, I think that you need special teams. Interesting you bring this up. We were watching when I was at Seahawks yesterday, and Corbin Smith, who we were watching this, and Greg Bell, where the punter they had a ball machine that would punt the ball, and Michael Dixon would emulate it, so he pretend like he was going to punt. Right. So I think, I don't know. I mean, why am I bringing that up? Is just because they had it automated for their punter, while the kicker, obviously, Jason Meyer, they had him kick, and he's looked really well. So kind of threw a Seahawks special teams kicking. He missed a 58-yarder yesterday. It was short. Jason Myers did, but other than that,
I mean, if you're missing from 58, that's okay. If you're missing from 38 or in, that's where.
No, he's been consistent from 48 and 50. So, all right, so let's we've got 3 minutes. Let's just stay with the defense. My unofficial depth chart, our guy, Mish Powell, one cornerback, Alex Cook, Asa Turner, and Jordan Perryman. Is that right?
Yeah, and then you got Dom Hampton. Although Cameron Fabi-Kulanen has been pushing Dom, it seems like, for that starting Husky.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Cameron Fabi-Kulanen. Basically, he's been consistently with the twos, but he's over the past 3 or 4 practices is kind of. It almost seems like he's more out there more than Dom has been. Dom's still out there and certainly good to go. Dom, I think Dom's got that unlocked where it's like, okay, how far or close to K-Fab is he? And it seems like those two guys have both been, almost 1A, 1B. You could kind of get the same result out of them. So I think that's actually a promising development, because behind that, I'm not sure who you got for that third nickel/Husky spot. But right, the first,
tell us what is the Husky nickel spot?
Basically, it's that third hybrid. It's not a true. It's a more of a safety corner spot than anything else. Some defenses have it a little, like Elijah Molden has been the nickel for the Husky, where he was undersized. This one, they want to seem to have more 6'1", 6'2" guys. Dom Hampton's kind of perfectly in that mold, where you're not a linebacker, you're not totally a safety, but you can kind of do a mix of both.
Where does he line up? You got your 2 cornerbacks here. You got, are you in a two deep, or how are you lining up?
So basically at the 4 down linemen, you got the Husky in between where the final edge rusher is and the first cornerback is, because you got the outside corner and Mish or Perryman, depending on which side, and then you got the Husky, and then you got the line in between or in front of the two linebackers.
He's in between or in front of the two linebackers?
He's in front of and to the left or to the right, depending on which side you line up on. So it's not a down lineman.
Let's pick the right side. I mean, just for simplicity's sake. Okay.
Yeah. So he's on the right. So if you're imagining on the right side, Perriman's to the far of him, edge rusher to the left. The backers are maybe like 2 steps and two behind. Or if anything, they're on par with each other. Sometimes they're on the line, sometimes they're 2 feet back, but it's still they're either even with or in front of the linebackers. But
all right, brilliant, great stuff. You know what we'll do is, why don't we try for the next show, try to get a visual. I'll see if I can, so that and then we can take it up from there in terms of where the Husky lines up, and then in terms of we'll finish the defensive backfield, then we'll go offense next time. All right, he's Lars Hanson. Great stuff. And we'll be back next week. Thanks, Lars. I'm Mazvita Maraire. This is Seattle Sports Weekly. D-Money, thanks. Listeners, can't do it without you. We'll be back next week. Thanks again to Pendleton and Jeff Brown.